Okay, YouTube, so like me and this other YouTuber found the rest of JD Delay's paperwork. And in this paperwork right here, it basically said that his homeboy that he snitched on was already in jail for the snitching he did, right? But then that dude turned around and snitched on him, and that's why he ended up in jail. He wasn't in jail right off the bat for that friggin' charge for the fraud of the fake bills, the manufactured fake dollar bills. He snitched and got out of that. What really happened was that his homeboy ended up snitching on him for stealing a car, and I can read if I can find it. Uh, yeah, right here it says Blah, who was currently detained on charges related to the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office case prior to competing in an interview with Blah. I read him his Miranda rights from a department issued form where he stated he understood and wished to speak with me. Um, Christopher stated he went down to the St. Lucie to visit his sister who resides in blah blah because he plans on leaving Florida. Christopher was shown still shots of video surveillance as well as the need to identify bulletin. Christopher denied doing any burglaries, however, recalled seeing the Honda Prelude. Christopher stated he was with JD Jesse DeLay. So Jesse snitched on this dude, and this dude ended up snitching on him. He basically JD always hangs around snitches. So he commits crimes with snitches, so they all tell on each other as soon as they get in trouble because none of them want to go to prison because they know what time it is. So basically, that's why JD ended up going to jail in the first place because he was out on bail for that shit, and then he ended up going to jail for this fucking burglary of a, or I guess what they're calling a burglary of a car. I guess that's what it's called in Florida. Around here, it's just called unlawful use of a motor vehicle or unlawful entry into a motor vehicle, depending on if you're driving it or if you're just in it and you haven't like gotten keys or any sort of material and turned it on. And then yeah, just keep saying that, and then he returned after driving around in the parking lot 3 spots away from the Honda Prelude. Christopher added JD DeLay was already there on foot and he watched him approach the car. Christopher advised that the vehicle was locked. However, JD DeLay lockpicked the door because that's his specialty. Explained that after JD DeLay broke into the car, he returned to Blah's truck and they left. Stole some type of exhaust sealing gas as well as a fanny pack with unknown contents. Added Jesse used the backpack to conceal that he stole from this car. Added he came down here to get away from JD because he brings bad things. Explains he's in a downward spiral after losing his child in a and girlfriend in a traffic crash. Did not know JD DeLay stole the debit card. However, he clarified in the room it was recovered while JD was in the room. And then basically the rest of it just shows that JD was there. But this is what everything JD has been charged with criminally in the past. So, driving while license suspended, possession of amphetamines, loitering or prowling, possession of firearm by convicted felon, possession of methamphetamine, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of synthetic cannabinoids, possession of methamphetamine within 1,000 feet of specific area, which if that's an Oregon crime, that's a Class A felony, and that can be charged up to 25 years. And it basically means he was walking around with meth near a school. Now, I'm not saying anything weird. I'm not saying anything weird about that. I'm just saying that that means he was walking basically near a school with methamphetamine on him. Now, it doesn't say he was selling it, but that is what that means. Controlled substance without a prescription, passing a forged bank bill, note check on draft, fraud, swindle to obtain property over 20,000, driving under the influence, possession of burglary materials, unlawful use of a vehicle, grand theft, petite theft, possession of a stolen vehicle, criminal mischief, possession of heroin, reckless driving, burglary to a motor vehicle, attempted to elude a police officer, and criminal trespass. He's also previously been arrested for possession of under 20 grams of cannabis, possession of drug paraphernalia, possession of burglary twos, loitering and prowling, burglary of an unoccupied structure, grand theft of a motor vehicle, burglary of an unoccupied conveyance, introduction of contraband into correction facility, violation of probation, contempt of court, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Oh, that's the other guy, never mind. But anyways, that other guy was charged with a shitload of stuff too, so but that's why they snitched is because neither of them wanted to go to prison. Like the other guy's going to break down this point system uh that Florida has because I'm not familiar with the Florida point system and I'm not familiar with too many out of states things. I'm used to the grid here in Oregon. Like if you're an A on the grid in Oregon, then you're going to prison even if you get a class C felony and you're doing 5 years for that because you're an A on the grid. That's the highest you can be. And like one surefire way to make sure you're an A on the grid automatically is to catch a murder charge. You will automatically be made a A on the grid for sentencing. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But I don't know. There's a bunch of paperwork, and I haven't found it all. I haven't looked it all up. But here's the docket numbers so people can look at them themselves. Right over here. This is all of his paperwork. If only we could. I don't know if Florida has discoveries or if they're on here, but if there's discoveries, that'll be more of a wealth of information. A whole lot more. Like a lot more stuff. This is also paperwork on JD Delay, and like in here it says that he basically gives up information in the police report. He doesn't necessarily say like, "Oh yeah, we were doing drugs," but he straight up tells them that they were staying in the hotel room, which giving any sort of information to the police is still bad. It's like still no good. Like when the police ask you a question, you're supposed to immediately say, "I want my lawyer," and then the conversation ends right there because they have to get you up. Either you have a private attorney and they talk to your private attorney, or you get a public defender, but they don't ask you no more questions, and that's what you're supposed to do if you're going to commit crimes. But obviously, he didn't do that. He was already used to giving up information, so he did. But anyways, I'll catch you later, YouTube. I don't. That's it. That's his paperwork.